Listeners of the T.R.O.N podcast, the Randomness of Nothing. As always, we bring interesting guests from all walks of life, and that's what this show was built on and is all about. This man epitomizes it. He's a former NFL player, and he's here to teach you the science of healing your body in ways that are not conventionally used by modern medicine. He's living proof that you can plow through those things. And he's also found a second calling to help people and distribute his knowledge to the rest of the world. Mr. Daniel Esposito.
Thank you, Rashad. I appreciate it.
So you have a very interesting trajectory. There's not a lot of stories I've seen that are this interesting. You're a former NFL player, world-class athlete, but also, you went through a lot of chronic pain management as well, too, which a lot of people suffer with as well, too. Are you free to talk about your story in your life?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think it's interesting to kind of go back. I like to go back to my childhood because I think it talks a lot about who I am and what sort of molded me as a person and as an athlete. So, as a child, and I think a lot of people who suffer from fibromyalgia or chronic pain, they had a lot of trauma in their childhood. And so while I believe that contributes a little bit to it, I think it's more sort of eating patterns and things like that. But in that, I did have a lot of trauma. Two stepfathers who were alcoholics, et cetera. Yeah, that's okay. I have grace for them. I know they were going through things. My one stepfather lost a brother in Vietnam. He was in Vietnam himself. He probably had a lot of, whatever was going on up there.
For sure.
But with my parents being divorced when I was very young, 4 years old, we moved around a bit. So I moved kind of back and forth from parent to parent. So I was in 5 elementary schools, right? So
wow.
So as a kid, and I was a really smart kid. I tested really high with all the standard academic stuff and, top 2 percentile and whatnot. But, as you move around so much, you focus more on making friends than,
fitting in,
school. And school wasn't really like my mother and my stepfathers didn't really push school too much, so I did really well early on. And then as, the rough times in life happened, my grades started failing. But moving around so much, I was, athletics was the way that I was able to make friends quickly, right? I was always I was always, I won like the first grade, like school Olympics, or something like that. So, you get friends right away and you start really focusing on that. And, there's a couple things genetically, like I have the MTHFR polymorphism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. No, I'm not familiar with that. It's really important in this whole pain thing, but also with mental health. But what it does is it kind of creates a protein that coats your mast cells. So MTHFR processes folate and not folic acid, and folic acid is poison in my estimation. But it converts folate into another protein that sort of puts a muffler around mast cells. Mast cells give off histamine. So that's the start of your fight or flight process. So my body doesn't normally regulate histamine very well, which means I can have a little bit of a spark going all the time, right? There's a little underlying like fuse that's being lit, not exploding until you kind of push to, real far.
Yeah, you're correct.
But as with chronic pain, the interesting thing is that fuse gets way smaller, and that becomes a much bigger problem with anxiety and mental health. But, so I have that going on. So I was always running and keeping active and doing stuff. And, all my friends wanted to kind of chill. And I'm like, let's go play basketball. Let's go do this. It's also associated with more world-class athletes, that gene. So, and they have some other theories about it builds muscle. But I'm like, no, I think it's just because we have a spark all the time. I'm also type O negative blood, right? Wow. So the negative blood type, there's more copper in your blood. Copper conducts electricity better than iron. So in terms of being fast and, whatever, I've sort of got a couple things going for me genetically that helped me achieve that, which, is very fortunate for me, especially to be on the path that I was on. Because I was a baseball player growing up, ran a little bit of track in like middle school, elementary school, nothing in high school. Played baseball as a freshman. I lived in Philadelphia at the time with my father. I was on the JV team as the second string catcher. The starter on JV was going to move up to be a junior, and you kind of have that natural progression. But I decided at that point I wanted to move back to Florida because I grew up mainly in Florida, and I hate the cold weather. I'm up here in Philadelphia, and you're in Detroit, and it's miserable, and we're in this storm.
It sucks, dude.
And as long as the sun's out, I'm okay with it. but the sun's usually not out
Isn't it
anymore.
funny how suddenly like your whole entire mood, being, and like well-being is based and dictated around actually seeing sunlight?
So let me tell you, I can talk to you about that. It's very interesting when you look at, we talked about methylation and how your body utilizes nutrients to make all
Yeah.
these processes happen. So both of my vitamin D receptors, I have a double polymorphism, meaning that 100% of the sunlight, my body can only sort of metabolize or utilize 30% of it.
Okay.
So, and really vitamin D, so I get the seasonal attitude depression.
Yeah.
And vitamin D actually comes from cholesterol and not the sun. The sun just releases it from your skin. So this whole statin world that everybody's sort of falling into, which is a huge trap,
Yeah.
but for your metabolism, your body, everything,
Yeah.
they're not good. And we could talk about that if you want at some point. But so you need all this, this cholesterol running through your body for your mental health. It's 90% of your brain weight. It wraps every cell in your body. But yeah, so I need to make sure that in the wintertime, I'm supplementing more with vitamin D. And I had never experienced depression at all my whole life until it started getting really dark. Skies have gotten darker over the last 10 years or so, but it was up here in the winter, and I had gone vegan, which is also doesn't give you enough nutrients to build all the happy chemicals, as part of my journey in getting sick. And I got massively depressed. I was like, started having all these weird thoughts. I was like, oh, wow, this is what depression is. Like, I never, everyone would talk about it, and you don't know what it is until you're like sunk in this place of despair for no reason.
Right.
And you're just like, wow. And then, so it was interesting. I went and I told, Kate, my partner, I said, hey, I'm having these weird feelings. She goes, well, you did go vegan. I literally went the next day, got a hamburger, and popped right out of it.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things like pathways that rely on certain nutrients that you're only finding in like animal foods.
Okay.
that sort of get rid of things that cause depression. There's this one, I'll bore everybody real quick, but there's a set of genes called MTRR, methylation transfer reductase. It's in part of the methylation cycle. So these two genes, which I have a double polymorphism as well, so I can only utilize 30% of the B12 in my body. This requires B12 to work. These genes convert a molecule called homocysteine. So if you have depression, you should learn about homocysteine. Homocysteine is a depression molecule, basically. And so it converts it into methionine, right? Which helps with dopamine regulation and like motivation.
Do you have a science background, man? Because this is absolutely...
No, I had to learn all this stuff on my
No,
own.
man.
So, yeah.
I'm just like, I'm stunned. Like, right. Like, this is amazing.
It's really important. Like, I think the two most important things if you want to be healthy and you're having mental health issues is you have to look at your DNA, and that shows you your methylation cycle. And then you have to look at your diet. Are you feeding these genes what they need in order for them to work? And most people are stuck in these like really weird diet patterns. Like, am I going to be vegan or vegetarian, or am I going to be carnivore or keto or whatever? But what I did, and that you get this for free if you sign up on my, I have like a community that I'm building where I have the undo method.
Yeah, I saw your
website. Who want to heal, right? Not people who are going to complain and say, I'm going to take this drug and this drug. It's all drug free. Like, what are we doing naturally to help our bodies? So in there, I have what's called the world's greatest shopping list. And I'm going to share it with you real quick because I just think it's so great to visualize this.
That's what we're here for.
Share my screen.
While you're pulling that up, I have a question. Yeah. How did it become that where like breakfast suddenly became like cereal, toast, eggs? Because for a long time that wasn't it, right? Like people ate. When did it transition to this is that your meal?
Yeah, I mean that was the Industrial Revolution, right? So you wanted to get you out, wanted you to eat before you went to work, and we're not really supposed to eat breakfast as it is. It's breakfast is breaking a fast, right? And we talked about fasting and how if you don't hit 20 hours of fasting, your body cannot repair itself. And so if you look at, scripture, and like I told you, I've become very spiritual, and over this process, the things that they tell you to do in the Bible, and the CIA has this on their website. They say that the Bible is a self-help tool to keep this vessel clean for what's inside. So if you look at it as something more of a, like Anthony Robbins, it's a motivational thing, a thing to kind of keep you centered and grounded. It's Christianity, at least, that's what I follow, is a very good tool to just get yourself centered, whether you believe in the concept of a creator and a savior or not. The teachings in it, and if you follow those teachings, and I'm not saying go to church, I'm just saying what's in the Bible, are pretty interesting. As a child, because of all the abuse and trauma and stuff like that I had in my life, I doubted that God exists. I said, how can this be? How can someone, abuse a kid or, hit kids and stuff like that?
Right.
And so in the Bible, I took two passages: don't eat swine, for it's unclean, and don't mix linen and wool. And so I was like, they're so arbitrary that there cannot be a God that would give us these instructions. And so then I find out that the two main reasons that kept me away from religion or the teachings in the Bible have massive implications in chronic pain. So when you eat swine, it creates a thing called advanced glycation end products. It's a process in the body called glycation, which also creates inflammation, right? So you got these two events that are going to happen. That's what's going to then cause oxidative stress, which is another thing that causes pain. And then that oxidative stress causes more inflammation, and it just becomes this cycle. And in that process, you're also building collagen to structure the area. And most people don't eat well to build healthy collagen. So you've got this events from foods that we're eating that are creating chronic pain. So our body can handle 15,000 advanced glycation end products per day, theoretically, healthy body. When you eat 3 strips of bacon, you've created 90,000 advanced glycation end products. Nice. So you're only supposed to have 15,000. So someone that's on a keto diet and is eating all this pork, they're constantly causing this glycation, which is when you mix a sugar molecule with a fat or a protein, and then it creates this like barbecue sauce on top of the chicken. That protein, that's what glycation is. That is exactly what glycation is, actually. It's just that's happening externally to your meat. That process happens internally when you eat things like pork and hot dogs and hamburger, poorly made hamburgers. But real quick, let's look at this thing, this world's greatest shopping list. So there's 90 things that your body needs, and this is for free on my platform. You need 90 nutrients. There's nutrients, amino acids, minerals, fats. And so if you look at where they come from, first of all, vitamin A, D, E, and K, which are super, super important for just health, mental health. If you do not have fat in your stomach at the time you take it, it will not be able to get the nutrients out of the food or the multivitamin that you're taking. So if you have a multivitamin that you take, and I always tell people, get a methylated multivitamin, because you want to make sure you get as much folic acid out of your diet as possible, because folic acid literally acts as a neurotoxin in high levels. I believe it's a major reason that people are having cancer, anxiety, depression, and all sorts of other issues. And then you start looking at the foods here, right? So vitamin K, right? You would need 25 avocados to get the RDI. You can't get it out of shellfish. To get it out of a vegetable, you would need 1 cup of raw kale cooked, but kale is an endocrine disruptor, right, which messes with your thyroid health. But it would be 12 cups of raw kale. So, that's a very expensive, thing. You would need 8 cups of raw spinach, which I'm a fan of spinach, but the vitamin K in spinach isn't the kind the body needs. So your stomach has to go through a conversion process. So it's only converting about 15% of this, and only if you have perfect gut health to make the conversion. Right. So the bioavailability of these vitamins are all in the green areas here. Right. So when you start looking, it's mostly over here in your animal foods. I mean, you've got, some nuts and stuff like that. But for the most part, vegetables, you're going to find a very tough time to get anything of value out of the vegetable. And I'm not saying vegetables don't have value. I think natural folate from vegetables is super, super important. And that's why like raw spinach or asparagus is like the vegetable that we have at in my home all the time. But then you start looking at your amino acids, which are essential as well. And once again, you can only find them in your animal products. You would need 18 cups of cooked kale, 150 cups of spinach, right? 135 avocados. And so flexibility fuel is an essential amino acid based supplement with the proprietary blend, Undo blend. You can see all this on my website, what's in there, of stuff that helps the body break down the junk. So, and then you look at your minerals, and there's a ton of minerals that you need, and then your fats. And really for your fats, all you need to do is have cod liver oil, because you want to have a higher amount of omega-3s than omega-6s. Omega-6s will cause oxidative stress. So that's linoleic acid. So now most people are getting their protein from chicken, and that chicken is at the supermarket that's been fed grain and corn, which means 30% of its body weight in that chicken is linoleic acid, which causes oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is basically tissue death, right? And and it's so when you take the cod liver oil, it's taking those omega-3s and pushing the omega-6s out of the muscle tissue, and then creating a better environment for healthy muscles.
Really?
So let me stop sharing that. So
I
anyway,
thought I was doing something when I was working out, and I ain't doing nothing.
It's the diet is super, super important, because it basically, you can't put diesel into your unleaded car, right?
Without question.
So knowing what your DNA requires in like greater amounts, right? And knowing what you're eating, taking an assessment of this, you'll start just getting healthier in general. Doesn't mean your pain and stuff is going to go away, because that requires very certain things to happen in the body, but it's really important. But now I'm going to share this one more time, because I forgot to do this.
Oh, you're fine,
so if we take a look at a deficiency in these things, so we go over here to the right side and we start looking. Well, first of all, here's the cofactors. If you don't have these things in your diet at the time that you're taking it, it doesn't activate. Why it's important. But then you look at the outcomes if you're deficient on mental health. Depressed mood, difficulty focusing, impaired cell signaling, increased risk of depression, especially seasonal attitude, chronic fatigue, poor sleep quality, cognitive decline, reduced motor control, fatigue, and like all these problems.
That's amazing.
Because you're not getting your basic micronutrients out of, either supplementation or food. So anyway, so let me go back real quick. Do you have any questions about what I've said so far?
I'm definitely going to need to go to the website, because I think
And then if you go there, I'll gift you the undo method, so you can go through the undo method as well. But so I moved to Florida, and I was going to continue to play baseball. And it's sort of like this path that was sort of, kind of laid out for me, I believe. And so, but when I got to Florida, there were two other sophomores on the team who were going to be the starting varsity catchers. And I was like, wow, okay. So the first guy was the highest ranked catching prospect in the history of high school baseball by the time he graduated. The backup was Jason Varitek. So I don't know if you remember Jason Varitek from the Boston Red Sox.
Yes.
Yeah. So he played for the Red Sox for like 12 years or something like that. He was the captain of the team. And so I quit baseball, right? Didn't play any sports, went out for football, didn't have the grades, be honest with you. I went to 3 high schools, 1 middle school, 3 high schools. So I moved around quite a bit.
That's great.
And so then I moved back to Philadelphia my senior year, and I was like, I'm going to go out for football. Went out for football. They put me at fullback. I was the starting fullback. I wanted to play tailback. My dad played tailback in high school. He was a really highly touted running back. And when I went to the same high school that he went to, and he went to the coach, he says, Jeb, you got to give this kid the ball some more. And my high school coach says, well, he's just not a running back, right? So, 4 NFL contracts later at running back, and, I proved him wrong. But, then I walked on to Millersville University, small Division II school, always ranked in the top 20 nationally for years and years and years. So really good football school, good academic school. I'm still not in their Hall of Fame.
You see Belichick didn't make the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, by the way?
Who did?
Belichick didn't make the
well, yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Whatever. Yeah.
You didn't make your Hall of Fame.
It's probably his young girlfriend. All the voters are upset he's got that hot little young girl. But so anyway, walked on to Millersville. They got me into school because my father knew a guy that knew the coach. I did not have the grades really to get recruited and all that stuff. But so I walked on. I was not very good. I fumbled a lot. I didn't even know. I knew that even plays were to the right, odd plays were to the left, and I just sort of hoped to find some space, But then by my end of my third year, my sophomore redshirt year, I started to get really good. Like everything slowed down for me. And then going into my junior year, the spring before, like I was the best running back on the field. Like it wasn't even close. Like if you looked at the stats, but we had a kid ahead of me that was, he was, scholarship guy. Both guys ahead of me were scholarship guys. But I was outperforming them. So going into my junior year, I was told that I was going to be the starting running back. 3 days before the first game. I was like, wow, I did it, and like, I always knew I was going to play in the NFL, by the way. Like
that's amazing.
Fourth or fifth grade, saw a Detroit Lions running back, which is funny because I was talking to a guy from Detroit yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
On the TV screen as I was walking out of my house, and I saw him make a move, and I was like, oh, I can do that. I'm going to play in the NFL. Like I knew it right there. And so I went into college football knowing I was going to play in the NFL. But here's another quick thing. My senior summer, going into my freshman year, the gym that I went to, it was a really tiny gym in Northeast Philadelphia. The owner of it was the strength and conditioning coach for the Jets. It just happened to be up the street from my house. He came to me and he says, hey, there's a guy that plays in the NFL. He's a quarterback. He needs somebody to throw with. Will you throw with him? I was like, of course I'm going to throw with this guy. So we would 5 times or so, we went down to the high school and we threw the ball around, and I caught everything except for one that just almost exploded my chest. I'm a senior in high school catching from this NFL quarterback. Yeah. And at the end of our 5 sessions or so, he goes, you're really good. You can play in the NFL. Anyway, so I go in and I tell, I'm going to play in the NFL, and everybody hates me because I'm this walk-on guy that's, nobody even knows, and I'm like, I'm going to play and, whatever. But I wasn't like bragging. I was just like, I just knew, I was, And so anyway, my junior year, the day of the game, we're in our pre-game session and I'm third string running back. I was like, wait a minute, 3 days ago, I was the starting running back. And I was like, whatever. I'm going to get half the carries, a third of the carries, whatever's going to happen. I know I'm in the mix. First game, no carries. I was like, wow. I was like, okay. Well, second game, no carries. I was like, okay, and we're not doing well running the ball. Running backs are getting yelled at and all that kind of stuff. And I went to my coach. I said, hey, Hoagie, I said, what's going on? Why am I not starting? Why am I not playing? And he goes, Espo, just hang in there. I said, Hoagie, and he was a younger coach. I said, Hoagie, if you don't tell me why I'm not playing, when I walk off this field, I'm not coming back. Yeah. I said, if you tell me why, I'm here. And he goes, okay, Espo, all the offensive coaches wanted you to start. The head coach came in and said, Esposito is a walk-on. The other guy is a scholarship athlete. He's the starter. I was like, okay. But I would get the ball like once or twice a game. I've got a little highlight film on YouTube. And I would have like a 60-yard touchdown, and then I wouldn't get the ball again. You know what I mean? And I'd have
you can't make that up, right?
It was legit. Like you can see it. Like I've got the highlight film. And then so my senior year, I'm going into my senior year, and I'm like, God, how am I going to get in the NFL? I'm going to have to really like play well on special teams and get something's going to have to happen. So first game, no carries. Yeah. Running backs are getting yelled at. I'm like, mother effer. I'm so angry at this point, right? And then second game, running backs still aren't doing anything. And then they finally put me in at the second half at 136 yards or something like that.
That's amazing.
So next game, I'm the first start of my career. I was the offensive player of the nation, had 300 and something yards, blah, blah, blah. And then it just went from there.
You kidding me?
Yeah. So yeah. And it's good that so looking back, it's good that I didn't play football because I started running track and I was now an all-state sprinter. Right. And so I think that, obviously helped with the way I played football. Then, teams came out, they started, working me out, watching me practice, coming to my track workouts, stuff like that. And then the Redskins invited me to camp without a contract. Second day of the draft. The Dolphins were trying to get a hold of me, which I would have rather have played for, but my agent gave him his office number, and they were calling his office number, and he's not there. He didn't give him his cell phone number. So, right. So, but anyway, I end up going to Washington. They give me a contract in camp after the mini camp, and blah, 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 blah. First game, I break my jaw in 2 places in the first play of the game. So I'm in the NFL now. I'm in my first game in Kansas City. I'm running down on kickoff. I'm flying because I'm like geeked, I'm pumped up.
You're in the NFL, yeah.
Yeah, 77 from the Chiefs. Can't remember his name. Obviously a very big guy. He's wearing the number 77. He's back there kind of setting the wedge, and I'm like, I'm going to juke him. He hits me right here with his helmet and just breaks my jaw here. All my teeth are pointed that way. This tooth is clicked like that. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, but I didn't fall over. Wow. I did not fall down. And I played the rest of the game, didn't tell the coaches that I had a broken jaw. And so pain, I can deal with pain, right? Chronic pain, I wanted to check out. Like I was like, when that finally started developing, and I remember every time something in my body got a little tight, because I've always been the most flexible guy. Like everybody would make fun of me because I was always stretching. After football, we'd be out at the clubs and stuff, and I'm over in the corner stretching because I'm getting ready to dance, you know. And movement was my thing my whole life because I'm a runner. My sister's name for me was the running man. I was a sprinter. I played running back. I could do backflips.
I'm so envious of flexible people. It's not even funny, man.
It's the greatest thing to have the freedom of movement. It truly is because. So anyway, I lost all of that. Right. And now let's just fast forward past all the other junk, you know, past all the surgeries, the shoulder surgeries, the knee surgeries, all that stuff. And I'm with the orthopedic surgeons and I'm like, what is wrong with me? What is going on? He goes, your muscles are just tangled. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And then they're like, you know, you're going to need this shoulder replaced. And then you're going to need this shoulder replaced. And then you're going to need to have your knees replaced. And we're going to have to start doing that at 50 years old. So I was like, man. And at this point, I'm 265 pounds. My lymphatic system is basically not working because I have so much inflammation going on. Your body's sort of process with the inflammation cycle is white blood cells are cleaning up the area, giving off lymph. So now my lymphatic system is overwhelmed. I didn't know that, but I'm puffed up. My face is just like, poof. You know, I started getting a beard. I had a giant beard because my face, like, I used to always get second looks by the women, you know what I mean? And so nobody's giving me second looks anymore. I'm like, get this fat. So then I got this beard and then all of a sudden the women were looking at me again. But, you know, I'm 265 pounds and I'm like, I can't move. Like my shoulders are just stuck in this place. And 3 months before my second son was born, I was like, I got to fix it. I'm going to fix this. Right. I said it out loud to the universe. So for the next year, I was just trying to tear my body apart, like just pull it apart. But I was also like, if I put my body in a healing state while I'm doing this, I should, you know, I had no idea. Like I just a guess.
Something good would come from what you're trying to accomplish, even if you didn't have the specifics in place.
Yeah. And so I had no idea what I was doing. And so the reason why I created the undo method is to be like, hey, here's what the enemy is, right? Here's the most common causes of chronic pain, what pain is, what causes these problems, and then the supplement, and then all the methods like acupuncture and nose breathing and grounding teaches you the science of why all of this together, when you apply it, the end result of what you're trying to do is what we talked about, is these things that are in your body, they're pressing against these pain receptors, right? They need to be broken down. But they're tough proteins. Sometimes medicine calls them insoluble. And the way you break them down, because you can't do it mechanically, because these things bend. Fibrin, which is part of inflammation, think of it like a water bottle that's really cheap and it's cracking.
Yes.
That's the same thing that's happening. It's not breaking, but you're hearing all this clicking and cracking because it's a viscoelastic polymer. It's like plastic in your body. So the bonds that hold it together are very strong, but flexible. The bonds that hold collagen together are 7 times stronger than steel, right? So your chiropractor is not going to be able to break through this. So what has to happen is there has to be an energy exchange, an electron donation to the thing that's causing the problem that causes it to break apart. Then the body is able to start breaking it down slowly, but it has to break in order for the body to break it down. So that's the whole concept behind what flexibility fuel does, wherever it is up there, and what the undo method teaches you. And then it gives you the science behind it, right? So it's not like, oh, this guy with, you know, long beard and wears flip-flops said, go hug a tree, right? I'm like, well, this is what's happening when you hug a tree, actually. All these electrons are coming up, donating to the free radicals in your body and causing a stabilization of these free radicals that are causing oxidative stress. So it gives you intention in healing, basically, is what it does. And so I'm not saying it can heal you. Only the person doing what they're doing can create a healing environment in their body. This helps the body put it in the right position for those things to work the right way.
Do you feel as though that, you know, we talked about this before the episode started, that oftentimes the default method for pain management is pill surgery, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to get your insight on that, because I think, you know, as somebody who came close to having that option presented before them, you if you have any state of mind, you're like, I don't think that's going to be the best solution.
I mean, so the first thing that I started dealing with was restless leg syndrome, right? Which it's basically your IT band starts getting hardened and starts, that's where all the pain receptors are, because the IT band is fascia. And so it starts creating all these pain sensations that are sent to your brain. And so I go to this, whatever place I went to, and they gave me a narcotic, right? Wow. And I was like, I didn't know, like, I never was a painkiller guy. Like, I was always a natural athlete. Like, everything to me was like, food and supplements. And so I took this narcotic and I was just like, whoa, man, like I can't live this way. Like, right. I'm a high energy guy, so like, I gotta like do stuff.
It's a mind blowing experience when you get put on something that's supposed to relax your muscles, right?
Right. Well, you know what a muscle relaxer is, actually. And this wasn't a muscle relaxer. So what these things do, the painkillers, all they're doing is so God's way of telling you that you have a problem is the pain receptor sending the signal to the brain. The medicine just stunts that signal. We've got the pain going on. So now you're not addressing these underlying problems.
Right.
You're just muting the signal to the brain.
Correct.
And so, even when you get a steroid shot, right? So if you have sciatica, you've already got the problem there,
sure
right?
Do.
It's already in there, those proteins. And I want you to think of them like sticks, rocks, and dead tissue, right? Because that's basically how these things form inside your body. So you've got all that junk in there pressing against the pain receptor. The steroid shot or aspirin, all that does is stops future clot formation. It does not remove or help remove anything that's already there. So let me tell you what inflammation is, because most people have no clue. Right? They don't even know that a clot is part of the inflammation process in most cases.
Okay.
So inflammation is a healing cycle, right? It starts with a cytokine release that then alerts these C-reactive proteins to start building up this glue, which is a clot. And the clot is to either stop bleeding, or let's say you've got a seed oil, or you've taken a medication that your body's not, whatever, you've got heavy metals to stop that thing. Right. So now the clot, the glue is there, which turns into a hardened fibrin that they'll call scar tissue, but it's actually a scab. Right. Scar tissue makes you feel like you can't get rid of it. Then the collagen weaves its way in here. So now you've got the hardened protein of the scar tissue, the scab, and then the collagen, which is not built right because you've not eaten your lysine, proline, hydroxyproline, glycine, vitamin C, zinc, manganese, and copper. Right? You need all that to build healthy collagen. Your collagen is resynthesizing every single moment of the day. Right? So that structure gets in there. White blood cells come to start cleaning up the area, which means red blood cells can't get to the area. The red blood cells create electricity, energy, and oxygen, basically. So now you're starving the muscle if you're in constant inflammation in this place. White blood cells are giving off lymph. That's why you'll see the swelling. Castor oil gets rid of the swelling. It will clean out your lymphatic system. Yeah, there's a really great story about that. I know Black women use the castor oil for the hair. You have a glymphatic system in your head, lymphatic system down here. They're connected. Your glymphatic system is responsible for hair health. It was just found out like 3-4 years ago. I just read a study on it. So it's like that old wives' tale. There's a basis in science for it, right?
Amazing.
So anyway, so I put this castor oil on my body unknowingly. This was the first thing that I ever did to heal. I told you, head was like this. My knees were swollen for 8 months. I put castor oil on my body, left it on overnight. For 3 days, I was blowing stuff out of my face. It cleaned out my lymphatic system. My face went back down. You could see the cuts back on my arm. It was wild. Anyway, so the lymph happens, right? Blah, blah, blah. And then what's supposed to happen is after the area is stabilized, at 20 hours of fasting is when your body releases enzymes to then go clean up the area and break those things down, right? So we talked about most people, they're doing intermittent fasting. You're stopping at like 12, 16 hours, right? You haven't got to autophagy or apoptosis. So autophagy repairs the cells. Apoptosis cleans this or kills the cells that cannot be repaired, right? So you reduce your cancer risk because you're getting rid of all those bad cells. So now we've got, don't mix linen and wool don't eat swine. Don't mix linen and wool, because these shirts, and this is the only shirt that I have like this for the most part, these polyester clothes, lower frequency than the body. Your body is donating electrons to the clothes, causing free radicals in the body.
How the heck do you know all this stuff, man?
There's a really amazing lady, Dr. Heidi Yellen, who did this study. So she's on my Facebook. You can find her there and get her studies if you want.
Okay.
So she, so linen, they would use linen in hospitals for make you healthy. Linen is 5,000 hertz. Your body's about 85, 65 if it's unhealthy. Yeah. Well, now because this is a higher frequency, it's donating electrons back to your body. So you've got these free radicals, positively charged electrons attacking your body. You're donating an electron back to it, stabilizing it. And that's what hugging a tree does. That's what grounding does, right? That's why that's why you have to know like what's happening in my body. Like, I know I feel good when I hug a tree, but tell me why. And it's like, you're sleeping on these beds that are lower frequency polyurethane, like whatever, no linen sheets, and people can't go to sleep because you've got this constant noise of free radicals going off in your brain and in your body, keeping you awake. So when you get like I have a grounded fitted sheet and linen sheets, right? Wow. I sleep so much better now. Anyway, so because most people aren't getting to that fasted state, and even for a guy like me who wants to fast more and knows the science behind it, I'm not going to fast that often. I've got 2 kids. I'm always picking at something on accident, breaking my fast. I'm like, that's 2 hours, 2 days down the drain. But so in my supplement, there's enzymes in there. So, you drink it on an empty stomach, so it's not digesting your food. It's just one of the things that are in there. And then once it gets into your bloodstream, these enzymes are looking for these proteins. So that's why I'm not saying everyone's going to feel this way, but for a lot of people, the first day they take it, it's actively working. So you get a little click and you're like, click, and you hear it. And you're like, oh, geez, what's that? I can move a little bit. Because it's really, imagine your muscles are all bound together, like glued together. It's just a little bit, right? But that releases so much tension in your muscles. And then you're like, okay, what's next? Like, what can I do? And then you go into the sauna because it makes the enzymes more active, right? Because the high heat also breaks the chemical bonds. So now you drink that, you go into a sauna and you're like, click, 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 click. Like, what is going on? And it just,
that's amazing.
Like I told you, like it becomes like a lifestyle. It's like, I want to be the most flexible, pain-free. I'm 53 now. I want to have zero pain in my body. I want to be winning gold medals up until I'm 90 with masters track and field, So anyway, and then so there's the glycation in there, which there's something in my supplement that donates an electron to glycation and helps the body, so, and that's the whole concept behind everything is here's the pain makers, the offenders, right? Here's why they happen, these foods, these events, this DNA. This is what it turns into. And I'm not saying you're going to get rid of all the food. You can't change your DNA. You can't but you can put yourself in a healing state to help break this stuff down. So
that's amazing, and I think one of the more fascinating things is I think with people such as yourself that are willing to, break conventional methods, obviously, people can have more education and tools in front of them to be able to, think twice about, just getting cut open or just taking pills that can conflict with one another, I think the keys, with flexibility, people don't realize what it really does to you when you really have lack of flexibility, right? Like you have a hard time falling asleep, and if you are physically active and you stretch and you're like, I still can't be flexible the next day, even if I've dedicated 30 minutes exclusively just to flex.
I stretched for a year, man, and nothing went anywhere.
It's very frustrating because you're like, man, you're not doing that little punk workout where you're just crossing your arms and you're doing like a little, like you're really getting deep using the bands and everything. And then the next day
you're strong. Like you're a strong guy. You should be able to, but like I said, these bonds are so tightly held together. They're designed to not break easily, right? Because they have to keep you structured and keep you together. And so if you're not building that collagen correctly, if you're in a constant state of inflammation, that junk just slowly builds up over time. And most people think it's just old age, right? But it's not. You're just creating a bad environment. 75% of our food supply in America is highly processed foods. Almost all of those contain a vegetable oil, a seed oil, which has linoleic acid, highly inflammatory, as well as folic acid. So this thing disallows fat cells from dividing. The folic acid drives fat into cells. So in these like protein bars that you see, these low calorie protein bars or energy bars, they've got these two ingredients that are going to cause you to be fat and have metabolic disruptions. So, but then if you talk about surgery, like everybody's getting these knee replacements and hip replacements and shoulder replacements.
Oh, for sure.
And unfortunately, my stepmom got one the same week that Flexibility Fuel finally came out. And so I said, don't get your operation. But so she got it anyway. And then 2 weeks later, she was driving, she had full range of mobility in her knee because she was taking Flexibility Fuel. But what happens when you do these things, you're already working with somebody that's has either food injury or a real injury in that area. And you're going in there causing more injury, right? And then this person's going to now go eat again, whatever they were eating before, right? And not work out or not do enough rehab to really break down these fibrins and collagen that's starting to set in, right? Because you're going to be a little more sedentary after a knee operation. You're not going to be doing, and so now all these fibrins and scar tissue is going to set in. Those bonds are going to set in, and it becomes really, really hard to break them down.
You're right.
Through conventional methods.
And what I find fascinating with you is that, so many people suffer from chronic pain and so many people slip into, destructive lifestyles, but you saw the light at the end of the tunnel and came out a much better individual and are willing to help people, so there's an easy way to go. And I'm not blaming people, not faulting people, but, you decided to find a better way to help people and came out positive. And that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I mean, the mental health challenges that come with chronic pain are super debilitating. I mean, depression, anxiety, your fuse gets much shorter, right? Even when you're aware of it and you're like trying to manage it, you're in fight or flight.
Yes.
That signal is not something you respond to, you react to it, right? And even like I'll be driving, right? And like days that I know I have anxiety, like certain supplements will kind of give me a little anxiety. And I get angry at the people driving. I'm like, oh God, you're in that mode again. Stop. And then you can't stop because it's a reaction. And it's like, so then that's why folic acid is so bad, because it creates more of that reaction. And so that's, just you have kids, right?
Yeah. 3 dogs.
Yeah. So if your kids are taking a multivitamin in the morning, like say it's a kid's Flintstone, right? It's a third of the daily amount of folic acid in that vitamin, right? Wow. So now you send your child to school. Maybe you give them a bowl of cereal or a muffin before school, sprayed in folic acid. Okay. They're probably 50% of the way, at least, to the upper limit. And folic acid acts like a neurotoxin in high amounts, right? So now you send your kid to school and then they have lunch or a snack, chips, whatever, folic acid and seed oils, and they're under these LED lights. And if you've ever seen an LED light on a camera, it flickers.
Yeah, right.
Your brain is picking that up. Your eyes are not. Right. So when you put your kid in school under these LED lights, there's a constant stimulation going off in their brain, and they have all this folic acid in their brain. Now they're going to lunch and eating a slice of pizza, more folic acid. Come home, have a bowl of spaghetti. Now they're way over the upper limit, and it's going to take days for that folic acid to get out of the body. But guess what? You're doing it again tomorrow.
Right.
And it compounds. Now your kid has ADHD, right? And you're giving them Ritalin or, whatever the other drug is, whatever that people take for ADD.
Right.
And the real problem is we're feeding them food that's causing them to panic a little bit inside.
Oftentimes, it sounds like a cliche, but you are what you eat, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like the biggest cliche. You don't even think about it, right? Because you're so conditioned to just have those same foods because you've been, they're available, they're accessible, they're on every grocery store, every shelf. And, the time that it takes to eat the asparagus and, to do the research that you do, ultimately, it takes a lot of work to really get to that point. And so some people ultimately don't do those type of things. Where can people find Undo Me and its products and you to find more about Daniel Esposito? Because I think this episode deserves more. This is almost like a 3-part series, to be quite honest with you.
I'll talk to you. I'll talk because it's so important for me. Not only, one, I want to turn this, hopefully this can be, my full-time career is the supplements and, I have another business that I run but I just want to help people heal, right? It's like the most important thing. And of course I want to make a little bit of money doing it, but the most important thing for me is to get people, I've given away so many bottles of Flexibility Fuel to people I've just seen like at the Target parking lot, hey man, I think you might need this, but anyway, so undo.me, UNDU.me is the website. And on there you can find Flexibility Fuel. and Flex. Flex is a discount code if anybody wants to use that.
Yeah.
And then you can go on there. It'll say the Undo Method. It's hosted on a different platform because it's like a community. So it'll take you to that platform. You can sign up for free, create a free profile there. We're just starting that community out. I only want people there who are looking at unconventional ways. There's no drug talk. There's no prescription talk. There's none of that. There's no negativity. It's like, we're all there to share, but on there you get the free, world's greatest shopping list, I call it. I'm going to be putting together meal plans as well that people can say, okay. And here's the thing about food. This exists, this chart that I have, I know it exists. I am not 100% on it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not expecting anybody to think that they need to be perfect in order to heal. It's just the more perfect you are, the faster potential you have.
Oh, yeah, like, so if somebody sees you out to dinner on a Saturday night, right? Like, come on, dude. Like,
I mean, the snowstorm came. I got a pumpkin pie up there, cookies, a bottle of wine, the whole deal. But for the most part, the way I do things is I get my meat delivered to my home through fresh, wild pastures and wild Alaska, right? So I get good meat that comes in from animals that eat what they're supposed to eat. And every once in a while, like if we want junk in the house, we have to make a special trip. Right. And then when we go out to eat, we're just eating whatever's available. I try to make good choices, but in the home, right, I eat my liver, I get kidney, I eat heart, I do all the stuff that has all the nutrient dense things. It's really important. If you look at this list, you're going to see that's where all the nutrition is, right?
I'm looking for it. That's amazing.
And then there's going to be some other, some free things on there. All the podcasts are going to be on there, and, little snippets from the Undo Method. And then if you want to buy the Undo Method, this is the way I've done it because I want to make it accessible to everybody. So initially, it's $196, and you get a free bottle of flexibility fuel, which is a $50+ thing. But then you have access to it forever. Or for $13.69, you can do it monthly. You can get through it in a week, right? Nice. So if someone doesn't have money, right, and they want this information, I think it's worth at least 10, 15 years of my suffering for $13. So they can access it there for take screenshots. I don't care what you do, but it's there. It's there for you, and it's accessible to everyone. And I really think it'll shine a light on like what you're feeling. It gives like a face to the problem,
for sure,
and then gives you some science-based, all third-party studied. All these studies are on the National Institute of Health website. It's everything in there is based in a science-backed study. So,
I'll be honest with you, I'm looking forward to being on that list and that distribution as well too. And you and I definitely have some follow-up conversations to have, because I think when it comes to chronic pain, people have mashed over for quite a few issues, because I think anybody, whether it's themselves, their loved ones, or close friends, all know somebody who's ultimately suffering, and they've certainly done. All options should be on the table when it comes to trying to get a positive outcome, to something as severe that affects so many people.
I think it's important. 50%. It's estimated that 50% of Americans are dealing with chronic pain. The official diagnosis is around 30% of Americans are dealing with chronic pain. And juvenile, like arthritis and things like that, are on the rise. It's becoming a much bigger epidemic, and it's becoming normalized in the media. It's just, and it's not normal. We should not feel this way.
I agree with you 150%. Well, Daniel Esposito, this is why we made the Randomness of Nothing podcast, because it's outlets like this that allow me to talk to people like yourself who are willing to help people share their stories and ultimately get the message out there of wonderful things that they're doing in their lives. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Rashad. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you too. Take a good one, brother.
Buddy. Yep.